Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of Rotoworld Live. My name is Josh Norris. That's John Daigle. That's Ian Hartis. Gentlemen, it is week 9. It's here already. Let's help people win their weeks.
Happy Derrick Henry week, Josh.
We'll get into that as the show goes along. As you all know, we do the Core 4 game previews. We'll hit that later on. You are the most important part of the show, so leave your comments on Twitch and on YouTube. We'll answer those questions throughout the show. But what we do, John Daigle, each and every week, we start with the blurbs of the week. There's some major injuries to consider in your fantasy lineups and your wages this weekend, some might say. Let's start off with T.Y. Hilton, Ian, who is down against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This has a trickle down for the entire Indianapolis Colts offense, and especially Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, it's been an annoying offense to figure out this year behind T.Y. Hilton and Marlon Mack because they just have a bunch of competent, kind of complementary receivers. But for the first time last week, we kind of saw some guys emerge from that group. Specifically, Zack Paschal was playing 92% snaps. Chester Rogers at 62%. Paris Campbell was only 12%, but it was his first game back from injury. We saw kind of before that injury and just the fact that he is a second-round pick, they want to get him involved. So I expect those three to be in 3 wide receiver sets, and probably Deon Cain will be out there as well. But among that group, I think we got to take a long look at Zack Paschal. I mean, I just looked at some stats this weekend where I wanted to see who were guys that weren't getting the workload but were just balling out their opportunities. And among 93 wide receivers with at least 20 targets, Zack Paschal has the biggest difference in terms of volume rank and yards per target rank. So when they throw the guy the ball, he makes plays, and he's about to get the ball a lot more.
That's not the only significant injury in this contest. Daigle, James Conner is also out. James Conner's the lead ball carrier, obviously, the Steelers, who are struggling offensively. So now Jaylen Samuels enters the ballgame.
And it's not just James Conner, right? Benny Snell also had a meniscus trim, so he's out as well for the next few weeks, which leads us to Jaylen Samuels likely getting every touch in this matchup. Despite the matchup being tougher for Samuels and the Steelers, it doesn't matter. The fact is Samuels going to handle every touch ahead of both Trey Edmonds, who has 1 carry on the season, and Tony Brooks-James, who doesn't have a single career carry.
Never heard of Tony Brooks-James, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, now he's their Steelers third stringer, and he's not going to get a single touch behind Jaylen Samuels. So don't overthink it. I know we were haunted by the ghost of Ty Johnson getting 40% of snaps. Right. You fire up Jaylen Samuels everywhere.
Yeah, and Jaylen Samuels is a fun football player in that he can catch passes. He's a lot of fun.
That's why the matchups don't matter, because he can score in 3 different ways.
Right. And it's kind of shocking. Last time I checked, the Colts are just 1-point favorites on the road, total of 43.5, despite being 5-2. And the and the Steelers, as we know, are just 3-4 with wins over the Bengals, Chargers, and Dolphins. They've lost to every single good team, and the Colts are a good football team. All right, the other blurb of the week is Brandon Allen is now your starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Ian Hartis, tell me everything that you know about Brandon Allen. There's nothing to know because he hasn't even really played football games in the NFL. So what does this do for Courtland Sutton and whoever else you might be looking at the running game for Denver as well?
The only 2 pass game targets I think Brandon Allen's small hands can consistently get the ball to are Courtland Sutton and maybe Noah Fant. Because, look, I've been burned on Noah Fant a little bit earlier this year. I thought, hey, maybe this is the week they try to get their first-round tight end a little bit more involved. This could finally be it because Jeff Hireman is finally out with a knee injury. And low-key, he's been forcing Fant to play more of a 60-70% snap role and just not getting the same type of targets. So I think Fant, full-time role this week. We already saw last week in the first game without Emmanuel Sanders. They fed him a season-high 9 targets, 5 receptions. So it's Courtland Sutton because he's got that contested catch ability, even in a tough matchup, even with a mystery under center. I think it's Noah Fant because he's going to get that volume.
It's not really the usage, though. Like, every week is Noah Fant week. That's what's funny because it comes down to him performing. Like, last week he was on
catching
the field
passes
for season highs and everything without Emmanuel Sanders, like you said. But it comes down to him catching passes. Like, he can get all the targets in the world again. Is he going to catch them?
I'm a little nervous for this Denver offense. Well, I always am nervous for this Denver offense, but especially now facing Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon with these bad offensive tackles that they had. It's only 3-point spread in this game with a total of 39.
Some would say it's a bad line.
But it would not be surprising if Cleveland, they haven't blown anyone out, but if they do that this week. All right, let's talk about the season pass because the season pass right now is 50% off. If you go to rotoworld.com/win, W-I-N, rotoworld.com/win, and use promo code.
I have to read a promo later, so I have to know this. Yeah.
Promo code NFL50. If you just need that little extra boost this fantasy season, get our premium content. Again, that's rotoworld.com/win. Promo code NFL50 for 50% off. All right, guys, let's answer some viewer questions. Shall we do that?
Let's start with
Again, you all are the crux, the core of the show, so be sure to get those lineup conundrums, whatever you have in the Twitch and YouTube comments. All right, Mean Machine 480. Mohamed Sanu or Desean Jackson. You know, we've kind of forgotten that Mohamed Sanu is now a part of the New England Patriots. He didn't do too much in his first week there, but Desean Jackson is a major story coming back from injury here, Ian.
Yeah, I think we got to go right back to Desean Jackson here. What did we see him do in his one game of 4 quarters, 150 plus and 2 touchdowns? Sanu is going to be good there. They sent a second-round pick for him. Clearly, they have big plans for him in that offense. But still, last week they were still kind of easing him in, I think is the right word, because Jacoby Myers still did have that kind of 30% snap rate and kind of prohibited Sanu from being a full-time receiver. So in the long term, maybe Sanu, but for this week, give me Djax.
Yeah, Djax, even one of the Eagles beats came out and said he's supposed to play in limited packages. But I think it's
Don't say it.
No, but I know, but I think it's enough though against a bad Bears defense. Like I know they used to be good. They have not been good this year.
I think bad is strong. I think that they are average.
Slightly below average Bears defense.
There we go.
A limited number of reps for Desean Jackson getting back on the field. I will still take that over.
The Bears offense does their defense no favors.
Totally agree. We'll talk about the game actually
today.
True.
A little bit later on as well. We'll be talking about the New England and Baltimore game. Let's keep going with another Patriot. This is from Mitchell D10. Melvin Gordon III or James White. James White popped up in the injury report this week, Daigle, but it sounds like he is definitely going to play. Is this a James White game? Because this is certainly a situation with the Patriots that they haven't gotten their running game going at all this year.
No, I think I still lean Melvin Gordon. The Packers, as we know, have allowed yards and points to running backs as they continue to focus on their pass coverage. So, yes, I don't know what's going to happen with this Chargers offense now that there's a new play caller. A lot of players should be involved, a lot due for positive regression in what is expected to be a sneaky shootout. But I still lean Melvin Gordon, if only because you're getting the red zone looks. James White still has to battle 2 different backs for touches.
Yeah, assuming Melvin isn't just outright benched with this OC change, which I would find very surprising. He's still looking at 10 to 15 touches against a defense that struggled to stop the run this year.
Yeah, and that defense is the Packers' defense. The Packers are favored by 3.5 on the road. Chargers certainly not have looked good this year. All right, let's now go to
road.
They're on the road?
Road.
Oh,
No,
road.
yeah.
Look, I do all this research, try to make everything correct, and then you throw a curveball at me like that. I don't want to make you rethink my
Chargers
entire
soccer
week.
stadium is going to have like 80% yellow and green jerseys.
All right, Jackson 628. N'Keal Harry is back off IR, obviously the rookie first-round pick from the New England Patriots. Jackson just wants to know what your thoughts are on him. Should I stash him or Chris Herndon, who we've been waiting for
Active today.
8 weeks for? He's active today, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play every single snap.
So a Jetspeak came out and said he was on Brian Costello, I believe, who's pretty good, said he was only active, Chris Herndon, most likely only active, because the Jets had 26 players on their injury report. They are struggling to have bodies available. So they may have just only activated Herndon because they have to have him available.
What's your outlook on N'Keal Harry? I was talking with Phil Perry earlier this week, who works for NBC Sports Boston. And, you know, when we look at Patriots teams throughout years, there's always a moment during the season where we consider, hey, this part of the team is letting them down a little bit. In previous years, it had been the defense. Last year was the defense. This year, it's the offense. And I don't think that they're going to rely on N'Keal Harry as we go on through the season, but anything he offers is definitely extra.
I think we're more of a fun real-life player than a true fantasy asset. It's tough to store him right now, particularly with the Patriots having a Week 10 bye, and everyone's going to have to kind of deal with that. But he played 3 snaps all the preseason. And on
Looks like Des Bryant on those 3 snaps.
That's what I'm saying. Like the 2 catches, the 2 targets he had, like he mossed the guys and was like looking awesome after the catch. He's got a really fun skill set in terms of contested catch ability and ability to gain yards after the catch. I think it'll be put to good use, but with Edelman there, with it just trades for Sanu, with Phillip Dorsett being more involved, tough to see a situation where he gets more than 5 targets a game.
And for whatever it's worth, at OTAs and training camp, he was outperformed by both Maurice Harris and Jacoby Myers. So
let's go to bogus time. This is an amazing name. Terry McLaurin or Jamal Williams in full point PPR. Terry McLaurin is playing with Dwayne Haskins now. Once again, back at the Ohio State days. That actually might be a downturn in his production because Dwayne Haskins certainly does not look ready, and they're going against Buffalo Bills, who we don't know if Trey White's going to shadow Terry McLaurin, but it wouldn't be against it either.
So Trey White has not shadowed this season. Last week, for the first time, he was actually moving sideline to sideline, so it could happen. I lean towards no. But let's cut Haskins just the smallest amount of slack because we're pretty much writing him. I'm not saying you're writing him off, but I've seen people more or less write him off for last week when the guy threw 5 passes when he got thrown in halfway through the game on the road in Minnesota. So probably couldn't dream up a worse spot to make your kind of, I know he got in earlier in week 4, but one of your NFL premieres, brutal spot. This one isn't much better. With that said, McLaurin is still that pass game's #1 overall target. Jamal Williams, you're kind of hoping that he falls into the end zone one of his 10 touches. So I like.
Yeah, moving forward, I don't write him off, but this one I'll gladly write him off. I'll just come right out and say it's going to be terrible. Terry McLaurin has the skill set, as he's had all year long, to buck anything that is under center and still perform well. So I still treat him as a wide receiver 3, but it's just the toughest matchup possible, even with Levi Wallace coming into this one banged up.
Boys, there are some really, really good games this Sunday and Monday. Let's start with the first one. The Vikings at the Chiefs. The Vikings are 2-point road dogs here. I believe the Chiefs are 2-point favorites. Did I write that correctly? That seems backwards.
There's been a lot of mixed lines. Vikings were getting 2 points throughout the week.
Right.
A few books in Vegas, and then now I believe it is Vikings favored by 4 points.
I'm seeing Vikings 5.5 right now.
It moved up to 5.5.
That has completely shifted then, and most likely because of the Matt Moore situation. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we know that Adam Thielen is back here for the Vikings. Ian, let's start with you, because we've seen Stephon Diggs, after voicing his complaints, get a lot of targets. Adam Thielen did that before getting injured, now coming off a multi-week injury. The big question is we haven't seen both put up huge weeks. Can they do that today against this Chiefs defense?
I don't really think so in this spot, because Chiefs defense has sneaky been a lot better against the pass and the run. This Vikings enter every week wanting to give the ball to Dalvin Cook 25 times. This week, it definitely makes sense for them to do so, because I don't think the Chiefs can stop their run game. And again, I don't exactly trust Thielen being at 100% either. I know he was saying throughout the week, I'm feeling good, optimistic he's going to play. He is active. But with that said, he was saying last week he feels optimistic about playing. I think Thielen's just a very tough dude that is saying all the right things. But I don't know, man. Hamstring injury, if he's going to be less than 100%, give me Diggs.
As you can see from the full screen, Thielen's really been relying on those touchdowns too. I mean, he almost averages a touchdown per game. And Daigle, that's not really something we want to rely on each and every week.
No, but I'm curious, because if we're benching Thielen because we believe he'll be limited, and I'm literally asking both of you because I struggled with it thinking about it this morning, where do you draw the line? What player and what ranking would you say I'm starting this guy over Thielen because I believe Thielen will be limited?
Michael Gallup?
I would definitely play Gallup over Thielen.
Yes, I think Thielen's out of the top 20 for sure.
That's a good way to judge it, yeah.
All right, let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs side. Last week, we know Matt Moore in spot start duty was 24 of 36, 267 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last week, we also talked about how, the Packers are only 3.5-point favorites that win by a touchdown. I'm once again riding the road team here, the team that I think is going to beat them in the Minnesota Vikings. But with Matt Moore, Ian, he did play well enough where a lot of the skill position players played well in your starting lineup. Do you think that can happen again this week against a better Minnesota Vikings defense?
We've had 6 quarters of work now with Matt Moore and this kind of Chiefs offense. And Tyreek Hill has 14 targets. Travis Kelce has 12. Sammy Watkins got 8 all of last week. No one else has higher than 6 above that. So I think, the days of Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson being these consistent fantasy options, we can't worry about those guys as long as Mahomes isn't under center. With that said, I think there's enough volume here for Tyreek and Kelce at least to, keep putting them in lineups with absolutely no hesitation. And even Sammy Watkins here, I'm going to go back to the well.
Oh, no, that's so gross.
Because this Vikings secondary is not a group of cornerbacks to fear these days.
That's disgusting. I would say Sammy Watkins isn't a player to fear either.
Yeah.
Fair. But I'm just saying, man, look, PFF, 127 qualified corners, each of Xavier Rhodes, Mike Hughes, Trey Waynes, out of the top 70. It's not even that they've been average. They have been bad. Rhodes have been wide open in Minnesota.
How do you view this game, Daigle?
You're starting Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce because their skill set, you're not going to ever bench their skill set no matter who's under center. They can still get one pass and then turn it into a touchdown. But Sammy Watkins hasn't finished above wide receiver 37 since week 1. You know what you're getting with Sammy Watkins. So
I'm just really nervous that Kansas City is not going to be able to slow down this running game at all. And I also think that it's Mike Zimmer versus Andy Reid here. Andy Reid called some awesome plays last week that got Mecole Hardman open, that got some other players open. And I think Mike Zimmer is just really, really good at confusing opposing quarterbacks, no matter if they're 37 years old and part of the scouting staff last year.
As long as Marvin Jones isn't on the opposing side.
All right, let's go to Perez Adam. Lamar Jackson or Kirk Cousins? Talking about that Minnesota Vikings team.
Come on.
Yeah, let's talk about. We'll go more into the Baltimore game a little bit, but that's later on. Why are you so confident in Lamar this week, even though he's going against a quote-unquote historic defense?
He's one of, I think, 9 players in the entire league with over 80 rushing yards per game. He's not just the best rushing QB in the league. He is a legitimate RB1 with his rushing production. So you would never bench Chris Carson because of a tough. Look at this week versus the Buccaneers. Should we bench Chris Carson because he's facing the best rush D in the league? No, because he gets crazy opportunity and we want rushing yards. That's what Lamar is. Anything else is cake on. We can talk about Hollywood Brown, like helping open up intermediate areas as well. I realize it's an incredibly tough matchup, but he is just too good on the ground to bench.
Yeah, well, it's just his rushing floor. You take his rushing floor. And Kirk Cousins, he does have the same concerns you have for Lamar Jackson in a tough matchup. Kirk Cousins has game script matchup now that we know Matt Moore is under center. And as they have shown in previous wins, they will gladly just take Kirk Cousins off the field and just hand the ball off to Madison if they get that far ahead. So I am taking Lamar Jackson's rushing floor over Cousins.
Yeah, last time we saw Lamar on the field, he obviously just completed 9 passes against the Seattle Seahawks defense. 1, he can't just complete 9 passes and win this game this week.
Right.
And 2, he's not facing the Seattle Seahawks defense. So I'm a little nervous, but I understand the floor, rushing, upside, what that gives you. And that's why you start him each and every week. All right, let's now go to your aforementioned Marvin Jones or Sammy Watkins. What about you, PDAL? That's to you, Ian.
That's
Marvin Jones.
easy.
Or Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, you gotta go with Marvin.
Yeah.
The matchup's too good, and if the volume's going to be pretty much equal between the guys, give me the one with the better quarterback and matchup.
Yep. So Marvin Jones is on the road against the Oakland Raiders. Awful, awful defense.
Awful.
With the 50.5 total, that's one of the highest of the weekend.
Awful.
All right. John Monton. Hey guys, do I start Zack Paschal or Golden Tate? We'll talk about that Giants game a little bit later. You were talking Paschal a little bit earlier, Ian. What about Golden Tate, who now might have to share some targets with Sterling Shepard, who's coming back from injury as well?
It's a tough question. I still lean Tate just because he's one of these guys, he's the only wide receiver to go over 100 yards against the Patriots like over the last year and a half because he's so good after the catch. He can make anything into something very quickly. It's a concern with Sterling Shepard back, and we have seen, when the Cowboys play the Giants, Evan Ingram eats, but they do a pretty good job on the rest of the wide receivers. I think there's uncertainty in both situations, so I'll take the guy with a little more proven at this point.
JV0, this one's to you, Daigle. Full point PPR, pick 2 of these, and there's some interesting names. Ty Johnson,
Okay.
Jaylen Samuels, Phillip Lindsey, or Le'Veon Bell.
No, it's not. It's easy. It's Jaylen Samuels and Le'Veon Bell.
Okay.
You're getting 2 top 12 running backs. Just start them.
Agreed.
Let's not overthink this. Ty Johnson, I think there is hope for him this week now that we got Trey Carson IR'd midweek. Paul Perkins called up from the practice squad, but they have Ty Johnson, J.D. McKissick, who's not going to get a lot of carries, and Paul Perkins, who may still goal line work, but I would think that Ty Johnson's snap rate increases from 40% last week to 65% this week.
Speaking of Le'Veon Bell, Ian, what happens if the Jets offense just doesn't do anything against the Dolphins today?
Do we see Gase's name?
I mean, it's a one-and-done year if they don't win this game.
One-and-done year? You think he makes it out of the season?
I mean, it's incredible. And, like, if Sam Darnold doesn't have a top 12 scoring week, then that will show a lot.
Robbie Anderson busts.
Jameson Crowder.
It's going to be a disaster.
It could be an absolute disaster. This one's to you, back to you, Daigle. Some people get nervous about starting 2 players in the same team. So Jerry Peters is asking about Marvin Jones or Kenny Galladay. Again, both in an extraordinary matchup against the Oakland Raiders. We know the Lions actually run a high number of plays this season. Why not just start both?
Yeah, is he asking one or the other? Is he asking
one or the other.
I mean, I would start Kenny Galladay over Marvin Jones, but if you can start both, yeah, sure, why not? I don't mind. I mean, it is the perfect opportunity. Lions are lending the most opposing snaps per game to other offenses. Like they play high-speed matchups, which allows both Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay, and really a concentrated target tree, to both be successful. We keep wanting to insert T.J. Hawkinson into good matchups. T.J. Hawkinson is not happening. Like a tremendous real-life football player who is not a fantasy asset. We could split the difference.
Yeah, Detroit games average 135 combined snaps per game. That's the most in the league.
Underrated streamer option, Danny Amendola.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. Higher ceiling play today from Raven Terp.
Ooh, I like the higher ceiling question.
Jaylen Samuels or Josh Jacobs. As we know, Josh Jacobs is playing like a top 10 running back in the NFL. He's facing the Detroit Lions at home as 2-point favorites. And then we talked about Jaylen Samuels. He's attached to Mason Rudolph, but Pittsburgh is on the they're dogs by 1 at home, but we know that Jaylen Samuels might see 20-plus touches in this game.
I'm going with Josh Jacobs. I think the volume projections are maybe a little bit in Samuel's favor because of the pass game stuff, but other than that, equal. And then just give me the much better offense at this point, which is weird to say about the Raiders, but at this point, only the Vikings, Chiefs, and Cowboys are averaging more yards per play than the Raiders. Hats off to Coach Gruden, and keep firing up Josh Jacobs.
If you have Josh Jacobs, do you play over Jaylen Samuels? That's super tough. I think I lean Jacobs. Jacobs is safer, but man, yeah, I mean, you have 2 RB1s this week.
And one's got Mason Rudolph at quarterback. The other one's got Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Let's go Derek Carr.
One is a quarterback. The other one is Josh Jacobs.
Look, I mean, Derek Carr isn't playing that poorly. Like, he's not. He's not being asked to do that much. He's hitting his back foot. He's getting the football out. He might, and this is for whatever banana land, but he's almost going to tie Drew Brees' completion mark for an entire season. Like, he's being asked, at least John Gruden is coaching him appropriately. Let's put it that way. It's not like he's on an island not playing good football.
He's actually putting up like good numbers this year as opposed to his fraudulent 2015, whatever it was, MVP campaign.
And it helps that
was very fraudulent.
Yes.
The Detroit's interior is all banged up. Mike Daniels, Deshaun Hand, Ashawn Robinson, they're all coming into this one, if they're active, with injuries.
Next Core 4 matchup is the Bears at the Eagles. The Eagles are 5-point favorites at home, 43.5 total. The Eagles are 4-4. It kind of seems crazy to say this, but the Bears are 3-4. Like, they're not out of it completely, despite what might have happened last week. But last week, Ian, David Montgomery put up his best performance as a professional. Allen Robinson is still putting up points and yards each and every week, despite being attached to Mitchell Trubisky. Can both do that against the Philadelphia Eagles today? Yeah,
I think they're both the clear-cut, Allen Robinson is where the Bears' passing game flows through, and now Montgomery is where the run game flows through. And the big takeaway from last week, too, it was Montgomery getting those snaps and getting those touches, but we'd seen that to an extent in previous weeks. He just wasn't all that successful. Tariq Cohen really took a back seat in this offense for the first time all season. Season low, 21% snap rate, only 7 touches. Look, Tariq makes a bunch of plays, but I think he's still just one of those players where they know he's kind of getting the ball when he's on the field. He still is more gadgety, I think, than they would like. And I think maybe having Montgomery out there lets them be more balanced. It kind of keeps defenses on edge a little bit more. So I think keep firing up Montgomery and Robinson pretty much. Doesn't matter what the matchup is. I will caution that I don't think this Eagles secondary is going to be quite as bad in the second half as we've seen in the first half. Jalen Mills, Ron Darby, now even Avonte Maddox. Their underwhelming group of starting cornerbacks is now healthy. So I'm not saying it's a great group of starting cornerbacks, but they at least have their starters back.
Eagles have allowed 61 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. I know we got an encouraging sign from Montgomery last week.
But a lot of it was a 55-yard run that he had.
Timmy Jernigan's back. If they try to do this, yes, against the Eagles, it is going to fail miserably. So I am off of Montgomery this week, pending your other options, of course. But Allen Robinson, fantasy wide receiver 15, despite having Trubisky and Chase Daniels all season. You're firing up Allen Robinson no matter what. Against the Eagles defense who healthy scratched Sidney Jones today. That was supposed to be their savior, and they just wiped him off the face of the earth. Because it doesn't matter.
Let's go to the Eagles side of this equation. We did talk about Deshaun Jackson a little bit earlier. I really think, as crazy as it sounds, the offense hinged on his health this season. There was a reason why they wanted to bring him in so much this offseason. We saw it in week 1, and ever since then, they've really lacked explosion. So, Daigle, what does Deshaun Jackson, as we see here with what he did in week 1, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns, him being back in the offense, what does it do for it, Dave?
I mean, even if he is limited, it still opens up the offense when he's on the field. We've seen the past few weeks, opposing defenses have just double-teamed Zach Ertz. Last week, the Bills just threw a cornerback on Ertz to take him out of the offense. And Ertz is still number 2 in fantasy among targets among tight ends, air yards among tight ends, and red zone targets among tight ends. And he scored 1 touchdown. I would imagine this helps Ertz the most, but it takes Nelson Aguilar off the field, makes their offense more explosive that way, helps Alshon Jeffrey now, who they finally have another receiving presence along the opposite sideline. I think it truly helps everyone involved.
We've talked about how this Bears defense isn't one that we fear now. We only should fear about 3 or 4 or 5 defenses across the NFL. But what if I told you, Ian, I'm most concerned that Deshaun Jackson being back and we don't know how many snaps will most impact Miles Sanders and will also impact Dallas Goedert, because I think that this Eagles team did some self-scouting and realized that, hey, we lacked explosion without Deshaun on the field. Miles Sanders is our most explosive player on offense without him, and so was Dallas Goedert.
The guy that hurts Miles Sanders the most is Darren Sproles, because he's back for the first time in a while. And it's the thing with Miles has just been getting him the snaps and touches. He hasn't helped his own cause, some early season fumbles and that, but it's just volume concerns with Miles Sanders as long as they're giving Jordan Howard so much. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about the Djax effect. I mean, it makes sense intuitively. Yes, you put a really good field stretcher out there, it's going to help everything. But statistically, too, it's backed up. Donovan McNabb, Mike Vick, Foles, Cousins, Jameis, Fitzmagic, Carson Wentz, all these quarterbacks have had higher career yards per attempt with Deshaun Jackson than without.
Why don't you tell everyone about the DFS toolkit, Daigle?
Rotoworld.com/DFS.
DFS.
Or it's win.
No, DFS is the DFS
DFS.
toolkit.
I read the promo for you earlier, and I don't even know the promo. Rotoworld.com/DFS. Win50 is the promo code they can use, right?
NFL 50.
NFL 50 because
This
it
is
is
going off the
50% off right now, the DFS toolkit. Ian and I run a show on Thursdays, Ian and Daigle's Big Adventure, the unofficial title. We go through the DFS toolkit. We use the projections. We use the lineups, a nifty tool that allows you to take out starters. For instance, you could have already started setting your lineups if you got rid of James Conner because we knew he wasn't going to play and saw the projection for Jaylen Samuels ahead of time. So, rotoworld.com/DFS, NFL 50 promo code, 50% off the rest of the season, and we'll see you Thursday.
Do you enjoy hosting, Daigle?
When I get the promo reads right, yes.
Okay.
We need to get the teleprompter ready for that one next week.
All right, let's move on. I saw someone ask about, because my computer just decided to log itself out. They asked between John Brown and Tyrell Williams. Ian, you want to hit that one?
Smokey Brown week. Happy. It's Derrick Henry week and Smokey Brown week. These are just the rules at this point. But yeah, look, Quentin Dunbar, he is going to play PFF's #1 overall cornerback this season. One of the only bright spots of this kind of Redskins defense. And look, he is going to play, but it's still a hamstring injury. And now he's got to face one of the most explosive wide receivers in the league. And guess what, guys? Like, John Brown has a ceiling now. It's fantastic. Only Smokey Brown and Michael Thomas have at least 50 receiving yards in every game this season.
Not only does John Brown have a ceiling, John Brown has a floor. He's a true #1 wideout.
I think that's what I meant.
Robert Foster is playing over Duke Williams, who was healthy scratched this week as well. That's kind of exciting. Robert Foster, remember, was Josh Allen's #1 receiver down the stretch last year for that final month. So, yes, I am leaning John Brown as well.
I hate to do this at the control room, but my computer just completely crapped out. So can we go to the next Core 4 matchup? Because that's probably the best way to handle this situation.
Do you like hosting?
I'm trying my best right now. Look, I'm just putting out fires all over the place. That Core 4 matchup is the New England Patriots at the Baltimore Ravens. This is Sunday Night Football, the must-watch game each and every weekend. The Pats are 3.5-point favorites on the road. Let's start here with this question. Daigle, to you. A bit of a rocky season for the Pats offense so far. I think that's fair to say, as we covered a little bit earlier. Who are you confident in, let's say, other than Julian Edelman in this scenario?
Okay, so one, I'm confident that I'm the new host because I have access to the Google Doc as well, so I have questions in front of me. So we're going to take questions. Actually, you can use
No, we're good. We're good with Core 4.
Okay, so you can use my
we're good with
questions
Core
as well.
4.
Okay, cool. All right, 2, I'm confident I'm not the host anymore. And 3, I'm confident in Julian Edelman and...
Is that it?
Yeah, that's probably it, honestly.
Okay. Not James White. No one in this backfield. I mean, this isn't a rape. Tom Brady.
20 touches. He's a touchdown-dependent running back with Rex Burkhead available. Yeah, I mean, if you're forced to start Tom Brady.
Because look at this. I mean, this is the total yards per game for the offense. Look, they've hit over 400 yards a couple times. It probably is game-dependent here. The last 2 weeks, just 323 and 318. That's a very middling offense here, Ian.
Yeah, it's been a middling effort. They've had to deal with injuries throughout the entire season, whether it be James Devlin, Isaiah Wynn, and then, I think their guard earlier than that. So it's just more of a testament to how confident we are in Brady and this New England offense that they have lost kind of key pieces throughout the year, but we just expect more of the same top-level offense. I mean, they've literally, I think, had a top 10 scoring offense every single season of the Brady-Belichick era. If not, it's like 15 or something ridiculous. So in addition to Edelman, I do continue to trust Sony Michel because, again, this offense continues to find ways to score points, and Michel's a touchdown scorer.
They are expected to score 24 in this one. Obviously, the Patriots are 8-0. And I do want to point out that I'm not down on this Patriots offense as a whole, especially for the rest of the season. I think that this is just the point of the team, as we talked about, where they'll figure it out. And they will figure it out because they always do. On the Baltimore Ravens side of this, Devin McCourty came out and said, with Lamar Jackson, I've never seen a player like this at the quarterback position. I'm excited to see Lamar Jackson go against this Patriots defense. We know how well this Patriots defense is doing, especially scoring touchdowns at like a unheralded rate. How do you think Lamar is going to fare tonight, Daigle?
He's a QB1, as we said, for his rushing floor. Passing-wise, I don't think he'll fare too well, even with Marquise Brown back, presumably healthy. The questions have been really more about Mark Andrews in this super tough matchup. But given the landscape of the tight end position, you start Mark Andrews as a top 8-9 tight end for his usage alone. Just because there's nowhere else to look. Like, you're not starting Jonnu Smith or Cameron Brate over Mark Andrews. But for Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's a top 8 QB. I think you can even call him a top 5 QB despite this matchup being extremely tough. You shouldn't expect much from throwing. Like, you shouldn't expect more than 150 yards through the air.
We know how you feel about Lamar. What about Marquise Brown coming back? Because he had 2 weeks in the first 2 weeks that were awesome. He, in some ways, is like Deshaun Jackson, where he opens everything up. Mark Andrews completely let down Lamar Jackson last week. In order for Lamar to play well, because this is in the Seattle defense, someone else is going to have to play well against the Patriots defense.
Yeah, and we know it only takes Hollywood one play to really kind of cash in. And look, Stephon Gilmore, he has been, I'd say, the league's best, if not the second best, maybe worst case cornerback over his last 2 seasons. So, I can't get behind the passing game much either. But I will say, just last note on Lamar, it's not just like he's Josh Allen just running around out there and winning this all with athleticism. Like, this is their offense. He has 313 designed rushing yards this season, not on scrambles. Last year he had 560. Cam Newton's the only other quarterback to be over 300 over the last 5 years. Like, this is not just an athletic rushing quarterback that Bill Belichick has faced before. This is an offense that is built around their rushing quarterback. So I'm not saying Belichick can't solve it. He seems to solve just about everything. But this truly is a new test for them.
It's a tight spread, just 3.5. Again, that is a Sunday Night Football game. This is the best team the Patriots have played all season, so be sure to go and watch it. I also want to talk to you about the Sunday Night 7. Join the fun with the all-new Sunday Night 7 game on the NBC Sports Predictor app. It's free and easy to play. Just make 7 simple predictions about what will happen in Sunday Night Football for your chance at the $2 million prizes and guaranteed cash prizes this season. $100,000 is up for grabs in each contest. Again, that's the Sunday Night 7 game on the NBC Sports Predictor app. Let's go
My
back.
picks are going to beat Chris Sims' picks.
Okay, let's go back to the viewer questions. D-Car Mitch. Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold? Daigle.
Carson Wentz.
Against Chicago's defense.
Yeah, with Deshaun Jackson back. Carson Wentz, they're very close, but that is close enough decision for me to lean Wentz, who has the higher floor than Darnold. I'm not really too concerned about Darnold, but I haven't been too concerned about Darnold in the past, and it still let us down. So I'm just taking Wentz and calling it a day.
Yeah, I'm concerned about Wentz's volume a little bit. I'm concerned about Darnold's ability to complete a 10-yard pass at this point.
I think a big part of Darnold's decline has been the offensive line, and I don't think that Miami is going to get after that offensive line at all in this.
Play
Now
calling
he has
hasn't
a
helped.
thumb splint on. It's just
Everything's the issue.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Let's help out M. Carey a lot, because M. Carey's in a very difficult spot in a 2-quarterback league. Kyle Allen or Mitchell Trubisky?
Gosh, just forfeit. Nah.
Kyle Allen's facing the Tennessee Titans. You think the Titans are going to run up the score in this one?
I wish I could say Trubisky because of his rushing floor, but he does not have a rushing floor anymore.
Right.
Like, he has like 35 rushing yards this entire season. It was the one thing you could always hang your hat on with Trubisky last year was, hey, this guy's at least a plus athlete. He'll get you 30 rushing yards per game. It's just not the case anymore.
You're banking on Norv Turner versus Mitchell Trubisky's arm in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go with Kyle Allen? He's a 3.5-point home favorite here.
Well, because, I know Trubisky's been bad. I know he only has 9 carries this year, which that's the biggest problem with Trubisky. Where did that rushing floor go? But it's still a friendly matchup against the Eagles secondary.
That's true.
That has allowed 6 of 8 quarterbacks they've played this year to finish in the top 15 at their position. Trubisky has been, like I said, he's been horrendous, but I still lean Trubisky in this matchup.
We started this episode with Adam Thielen, so let's keep it going. Nathang 2124. Start DJ Moore, speaking of the Carolina Panthers, or Adam Thielen.
I go with Thielen. I know he has been touchdown dependent, but he's at least getting these fantasy-friendly red zone targets, deep ball targets. The thing with DJ Moore is they've just made him into more of an underneath receiver in this offense. Him and Curtis Samuel, their targets, their numbers are all pretty close and everything except air yards, and you see Curtis just shoot up at the top. So I don't think the ceiling's there with DJ Moore like it is for Thielen.
I would imagine that, like, whatever DJ Moore's projected with 5 for 40 or whatever today is Thielen's floor today. So I'm definitely leaning Thielen.
Clee SW, Deshaun Jackson or Robbie Anderson, half-point PPR. It's funny because the Eagles tried to trade for Robbie Anderson last year to have someone like Deshaun Jackson on their team. Daigle, who are you going with?
The only defender, and you weren't even worried about him, but the only defender for Miami you would have been concerned with, Xavier Howard, is now gone. He's now on injured reserve for the rest of the year. So I'm starting Robbie for sure. It could get ugly, but I'm definitely starting Robbie.
I'm a Daigle.
We haven't talked at all about Devontae Adams, who is back in the lineup this week for the Green Bay Packers, the first real person in that Packers wide receiver group. So hello, Texas. Choose 2 of these, Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson, or Chris Carson. Do you start Allen Robinson over Devontae Adams, despite obviously one playing with Mitchell Trubisky and one playing with Aaron Rodgers? Yeah.
No, I go Devontae Adams for that exact reason. When it comes down to it, take the better quarterback. Because I think volumes could be about the same.
But we get to pick 2, right? Or we only pick 1?
No, you get 1 too. So, I mean, you're starting Chris Carson against Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
like,
you
I
don't
don't
want
care.
to bench Chris.
Yeah.
You're not benching Chris Carson over Devontae and Allen Robinson?
No, I'm playing Chris Carson.
Not even if there's a
He's
fire.
getting 80% of the rushing work. We're playing Chris Carson.
Are we playing Chris Carson?
We're playing Chris Carson. I don't care if Tampa on paper is good against the run defense.
Right.
I mean, Chris Carson is going to get the ball 24 times in this game. I would rather have a player.
Maybe bench Allen Robinson.
I would rather have a player who's getting 24 touches versus Allen Robinson, who might
That's
get
fair.
7 catches with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, even
That's
though he's
fair.
facing the Philadelphia
I guess
Eagles.
Devontae Adams and Carson.
I mean, one's on a good football team and one is on a bad football team. One is underdogs on the road versus one at home.
Allen Robinson's a top 15 receiver.
I don't think this Eagles defense is as big of a train wreck as you think.
I think they're a pretty big train wreck, yeah. We definitely differ on that.
Yeah, we do. That's okay.
And I just don't think Tampa Bay.
And Trubisky's also a train wreck.
Except for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. All right, help. Darren Waller or Travis Kelce, standard scoring. That's a difficult conundrum to be in.
It's a good conundrum to be.
It is, but
Trade one.
But you have to get it right. You have to get it right.
Trade one.
With standard scoring, give me Kelce because I think even though Waller has been finding the end zone more frequently, I still like Kelce's chances, I think, to get 6 points more often than not.
A little nervous about these Lions linebackers against Darren Waller, who I think is just far more athletic than this Lions linebackers.
You're worried about the Lions linebackers.
That means I like
okay.
Darren Waller.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were worried about Darren Waller against them. I was like, no. Okay. Yeah, no, it's Darren Waller. In PPR, it's Darren Waller. In standard, it is Kelce.
Sit one of these from J. Vita Liano.
Got it right.
Ooh. Sit one, half-point PPR. Juju, Michael Gallup, or DK Metcalf. One, you're not sitting Michael Gallup no matter what. So now you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been putting up similar numbers to Deontay Johnson so far this season, or DK Metcalf, who has had major red zone usage.
I'm starting DK Metcalf this week.
I think I'm sitting DK. I mean, Juju, like he had the awful game with their third-string quarterback under center, but with Rudolph, he's been PPR wide receiver 34, wide receiver 21, a bad wide receiver 66, then wide receiver 15. I think he was wide receiver 8 last week. So, look, he's not the top 8 wide receiver weekly guy. We thought he was going to be a Roethlisberger. But with Mason Rudolph, and Deontay has been playing good as well, but with Mason Rudolph under center, Juju has been a wide receiver 2 more times than not.
All right, let's hit the final Core 4 matchup. That is Monday Night Football. It's the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. Cowboys on the road as 7-point favorites with a total of 4-8. They are 4-3, and the Giants are 2-6 at this moment. Let's talk about that Dallas team. Can they still be one of the best teams in the NFL overall, the best offenses in the NFL, despite just being one game over 500, Ian?
When they're healthy, absolutely. But like we saw what happens. We've seen what happens with Dak in the last 3 years when someone goes away. 2015, Tyron Smith missed some time, and 2017, Tyron Smith missed some time. Dak started to struggle. Last year, before they got Amari Cooper, it was a big-time struggle bus for them passing the ball. This year, we saw both of those things happen in their worst performance against the Jets when Tyron Smith, Collins, and Cooper were out. So when they're at full strength, they move the ball on anyone. We've seen that, 30 points in 4 of 7 games this year. But they're not very good at responding to adversity at this moment. But hey, they're healthy right now, so fire up everyone.
Ezekiel Elliott, prior to the bye, they are coming off a bye, the Cowboys are, had 33 and 28 touches. That might be difficult to get there in the running game unless you just want to pound him up the middle because Dexter Lawrence, they just traded for Leonard Williams, the Giants did. That's probably the strength of their defense is just stopping the run. But I could totally see Michael Gallup, and Amari, and Dak all going off. All right, Daigle, other question I have. Who are you trusting on the Giants offense? Because this is an up and down Dallas team, just like kind of some other teams across the league. I don't know if Dallas's defense and their superstars have been playing up to the caliber as we expect from them. So we know that Daniel Jones gives up 1 negative play every single game.
Yeah. It's the first time all year, though, that Daniel Jones will have Barkley, Ingram, Shepard, and Tate all available at his disposal. The issue is he needs to hit downfield balls to actually succeed, and he's one of the worst downfield throwers in the league. 5 of 27 on attempt, 20-plus yards downfield. He's been terrible under pressure, and he's been under pressure at the highest rate since going under center, since its offensive line can run block with the best of them, but can't pass protect to save their life. It just seems like a matchup with Dallas leading the entire league in pressure rate created. It seems like a matchup that is terrible for Daniel Jones. Awful. That's why I'm concerned.
I totally agree. Do you know who's a little bit of a player, though, Ian? Is Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton, yeah, man.
A little bit of a player.
And all he gets are deep balls, too. He is averaging the most air yards per target this season, and good things have happened.
He has a 22 average depth of target. It's something crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Michael Bennett making his debut for the Cowboys. It just didn't work out in New England. They kind of shifted defenses on him throughout the week, but he could make an impact here with the Cowboys.
They just have him as a rotational piece. Him, and you know who else has been awesome? Robert Quinn, since he came off of a suspension. I mean, that's a real burst on the outside. Marinelli always rotates his defensive lineman as it is, so not bad to have a guy as talented as Bennett just waiting to go in for a few snaps.
And had hip or rib injury, but now it's been 14 days, so he should come out of the bye fully healthy.
Cool. The A Factor asks Odell Beckham or Adam Thielen. Lots of Adam Thielen questions. I understand it. Odell has not done anything this season.
I'm going back to Beckham.
Against
going
being shadowed most likely by Chris Harris today.
Don't care.
You don't care.
Interesting.
I still think Beckham is the most talented receiver in the league when it comes to
What if you removed Odell Beckham's name, just looked at what he's done this season, what the offense has done this year? Adam Thielen might look more appealing in that light.
Career low in targets for Beckham. He's 53rd in catchable pass rate. I think like 30 guys have more end zone targets than Beckham. I am fully on the OBJ's season is not his fault. It is Baker Mayfield's.
I'm with you. I just wanted to play devil's advocate. I mean,
I'm going Thielen.
I totally think the Browns cover that 3-point spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last time I saw it, I think it went up to 4.5. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they win by a touchdown in this game.
Brandon Allen, how can he throw the ball with two hands?
Mr. Sock asks Jamison Crowder or Curtis Samuel. We haven't talked at all about Jamison Crowder. I mean, he started the season with like 21 receptions in the first 2 games, basically. But last week, in the last couple weeks in Sam Darnold's return, he has not played that well.
I'm going with Curtis Samuel. I love my guy, Curtis Samuel.
Me too.
I'm a sucker for the air yards and the big plays. And also, like, if it'd be more of a question if Crowder was still getting that week 1, week 2 role. But the difference is once Sam Darnold has come back, they've had Demaryius Thomas, and now we've kind of seen those underneath looks get separated between 2 guys. So give me the guy that is at least we can actually kind of project similar target share, and one of them is getting targets 2 yards down the field, and one of them is getting targets 20 yards down the field.
Yeah, you would normally play Crowder for his floor, but the issue is with Darin Thomas involved and the struggling offensive line and Darnold, Crowder has no floor. Curtis Samuel has nearly 230 more air yards than DJ Moore, and yet he has 10 fewer fantasy points. Yeah. At some point, that has to bounce back. And I would imagine if it does, it's likely against the Titans. Like both DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel run over 70% of their routes on the outside, and that on the perimeter is where the Titans' corners struggle the most.
Smoke 808, Phillip Lindsey or Mark Ingram. I mean, Phillip Lindsey is tied to Brandon Allen. Mark Ingram is facing a very good defense. I still think you side with Mark Ingram here.
Yeah, I still got Mark Ingram. Look, Patriots run defense is good, but like teams are averaging more yards per rush against the Patriots than they are yards per pass, which is just ridiculous to even think about. But we've seen Mark Ingram in poor game script games this season still get between 10 or 15 touches. So, you know, the Justice Hill preseason hype and like the Gus Edwards stuff, it's dead. Like Mark Ingram is the RB1 in Baltimore, and I think you can confidently put him up in almost any matchup.
Yeah, Mark Ingram's not a top 20 running back, but even being in the 20 to 25 range, he's still over Phillip Lindsey slightly.
King Jor, we know that Mark Andrews, speaking of the Ravens, had a really, really bad week. Yeah. The last time they were on the field, dropped like 2 touchdown passes. It was awful. Mark Andrews or John Brown, standard league?
Smoky.
Standard, like that's touchdown equity with John Brown.
Yep, I agree. Mark Walton or Sanu Michel. That's from David Brookings. Mark Walton is one of those players that, like, you know, you can talk yourself into it because he probably will see 14 touches in a game, but I don't care. Like, I don't care about...
If there's a week, you should care, though.
No, I don't care because below average football player on a bad team against a Jets defense that has tried to remain competitive this year, like if any part of the Jets has been at least a little bit optimistic, it's that defense, and especially near the line of scrimmage. I'm going with Sony Michel.
Yeah, I think you've been saying this a lot, Josh. You know, just don't play players on bad teams.
It's easy.
It's not always that simple, but if we're looking at volume being pretty similar between the 2 guys, yeah, take the Patriots over the Jets.
You just take Sony for his touchdown floor. Like you know he's going to get 20 touches, and it could be 20 for 60 easily with nothing to show for in the box score. But you just take his touchdown floor. Mark Walton's still going to get every touch, and the Jets are missing 5 linebackers. Like, it's not pretty for the Jets either.
Leonard Williams
Don't talk people into starting Mark Walton.
He's not a bad play.
He is.
No, he's not a bad play.
I've had to try to stop myself from talking.
He's not a bad play.
Walton, no.
I'm just here to help.
You're not starting him over Sony Michel, but he's not a bad play.
XC Mercy, start 2 of these: Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, or Melvin Gordon. I think pretty easily we're starting Evan Ingram basically in any scenario.
Yeah.
So then it's Melvin Gordon versus Hunter Henry.
I think it's Hunter Henry. He leads all tight ends.
Wow, you're just going to bench Melvin Gordon like that. I understand.
Henry leads all tight ends in targets since he came back. You know, I know people maybe got a little burned off him just because he went off the 1 week we thought he was going to be limited and he was probably on your bench then. But no, I think this still sets up as a better spot for the Chargers to I think the Chargers are going to be in comeback mode, and it's not going to set up well for Gordon.
So wouldn't that lend itself to starting Henry and Melvin Gordon?
Maybe. I'm just going to move on to the next question, though, because let's close on this one.
I think I'd go Henry and Gordon.
Okay. Marks asked Derek Carr, Phillip Rivers, or Jameis Winston. Only you, Daigle, get to dictate this person's win or loss this
Don't
week
do this to me.
based on this play. Derek Carr, Phillip Rivers, or Jameis Winston.
Okay, so let's just break this down.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Jameis Winston finished as QB12 last week, despite throwing 2 interceptions and fumbling twice, because that's what he does. He gets the 5.300-yard bonus,
right,
and he throws a couple touchdowns.
And he has 2 receivers on pace for over 1,400
and
yards.
he's going to do that again against this Seahawks defense. Like, the Seahawks defense doesn't stop anyone. They're not going to stop Jameis.
Okay. The only other point I would make is I might start Derek Carr because he's a 2-point favorite at home with an expected point total of 26.
So Derek Carr's maybe the no, he's not the safest.
He's
either.
a safer play.
I wouldn't start Derek Carr. Like,
okay.
You know what you're getting with Derek Carr, right? Last week was Derek Carr's coming out best performance of the season, and he still even didn't reach 300 yards in that game.
So Jameis, but you know you're going to get turnovers is basically what you're saying.
Jameis, but you know you're going to get turnovers. Phillip Rivers, that's more like a DFS turning play.
His name is not Jay Daigle on Twitter. Go and get him.
Yes, please yell at me, like everyone else.
Ian, Daigle, I'm Josh. We'll be back actually tomorrow, the Rotoworld Football Podcast.
Will.
The review episode will be up late tonight. Go and subscribe. Again, that is the Rotoworld Football Podcast. For everyone in the control room, for Ian, for Dagsy, I'm Josh. Talk to you next week. Good luck today, everyone. See ya.